NSFW, what is the worst thing you've ever seen or heard in a game of truth or dare? I got dared to use a zipline that nobody had likely touched in decades. So we climbed up a mountain while wasted in the middle of the night. Found that my friend was not bulleting and that it actually did exist. Used our zip on it and sailed over a 1500-foot drop. And then the thought occurred to me that I had no way of getting back. And I had not even brought a flashlight with me. And had absolutely no knowledge of part of the mountain I was on. So I basically stood in place for 7 hours or so. I don't know if that was the worst, but it was definitely the most stupid. Especially considering that the whole point of the game was to get with some girls who were no longer in a partying mood after I disappeared into the night. My friends and I loved this game in high school. One day I came up with the best dare. You had to be blindfolded, and someone would kiss you and you'd have to guess who it was. Well, eventually everyone just wanted to play that game. So we did for a few rounds. There were like 8 or 9 of us, so one person would be blindfolded. And everyone would vote on who had to kiss them. It was always a good mix of genders. Guy guy, guy girl, girl girl. Welp, it got boring eventually because everyone was just doing a light peck on the lips. So we invented round 2. Round 2. You had to kiss them for 3 seconds and actually move your lips a little bit, like a real kiss. Round 3. You had to make out with them for 5-7 seconds. Round 4. You had to use your hands and touch their face and shoulders. On particularly wild nights we would get to round 5, where you would have to actually straddle the person and make out furiously with them for 10 seconds. It was a great game though, and to be honest it taught me how to make out properly because at the end we rated everyone's kissing. Kiss the most beautiful girl in the room. Proceed to not kiss your girlfriend. Perks of being a wallflower. I wasn't participating, but there was one weird night when one of my daughters had a bunch of friends over. My wife and I were sitting downstairs while they were up in her room apparently playing truth or dare. Over the course of a couple hours we experienced some pretty weird stuff. 2 of my daughter's friends came running downstairs and started twerking before running off again. My daughter came down and said, "Mommy, Daddy, I'm pregnant. I'm pregnant because I'm a whore." Later we heard a splash outside by the pool and a minute later a couple girls come running into the house wrapped in towels and dripping wet. I had to go tell them to not jump out the window anymore and that pretty much stopped the shenanigans. When I was 15, the girl I was trying to date invited my friend and me over to a house where she was babysitting. When we arrived, she was there with 4 of her girlfriends, including her one extremely slutty and rumored stee-wielding friend. After drinking everything in the house she thought the parents wouldn't miss. We played truth or dare. Eventually, the girl I liked dared me to go have sex in the master bedroom with the slut. I passed and took truth, but my friend took the dare and went off with her. They came back out about 5 minutes later, and no one believed they had done anything. 9 months after that, everybody believed them. I watched my friend take her it in the park. Then we threw rocks at it. I miss being a teenager. When asked to present a deep secret about themselves, one of the really hot girls, this was high school, straight up admitted to using whipped cream to get her cat, hair and their tongues like sandpaper, to lick her. The awkwardness escalated exponentially like a nuke in the room, seeping into the very core of every living being present. I got really drunk in a game with some workmates and I had to get out my testicles and touch them against one of the other guy's testicles. Probably pretty tame compared to what else will be on this thread. A friend of mine back in high school was asked where the weirdest place he had ever masturbated was. His answer was a train, which really isn't too weird, still pretty weird, but he then, for whatever reason, didn't stop there and told us where he put the mess. Afterwards, when then train staff came through, he ducking ate it. Again, he just told that last part without anyone even asking. I saw a prolapsed anus as proof for a truth that no one would believe. It was not a pretty flower. I once gave a friend 2 dares in a row. 1. I dared him to drink 6 cups of water. 2. Then I dared him to not move from the couch for the rest of the game. A girl at a party I once went to got dared to sit on a small lava lamp. As in, sit on it if you get what I mean. Anyway, this thing was on. Hot. Poor girl sat for 2 seconds and jumped right back up. Turned out she gave herself burns on the inside of her lady parts. One dare was to bake cookies whilst nude. But then we were out of sugar, so a follow-up dare required a second person going to the neighbor's door in underwear to ask for a cup of sugar. It worked and the cookies were delicious. Grad student neighbors didn't even bat an eye. When I was 17 I worked as a summer camp counselor. The week of our orientation, before the campers arrived, all of the counselors were down by the lake when we started the game of truth or dare. Everybody was pretty normal except for this quiet girl that was a Disney freak. Everything Disney, pajamas, sleeping bag, hair ties, t-shirts, all Disney, all the time. Being 17 years old's up in the woods, our truths and dares turned sexual pretty quickly. After finishing my dare I turned to her and asked truth or dare. Truth, was the reply. Okay, have you ever had sex? I asked. Yes, but only with one person, my father. It started when I was 12. Game. Ducking. Over. Edit. For the people asking for a follow-up, many of the female counselors and naturalists spoke with her that night and the next morning. Her father had been jailed a few years prior to her telling us. When I was 16 I played truth or dare whilst really drunk. Bad mistake. I got asked what the most humiliating thing I've ever done was. Well, drunk me thought telling people about the time I had a wank and managed to unload so hard I covered my own face was a good idea. Never lived it down. One of my mates said he had his cock pierced and nobody believed him, as he'd sometimes exaggerate make-up stories. To prove it he put a straw through the piercing, and then another of my mates was dared to drink his drink through the cock straw. It was hilarious and weird, and both parties regretted it immediately. When I was about 15 years old my HS soccer team had a co-ed, girls guys team, spaghetti dinner that turned into a co-ed sleepover. Maybe about 6 guys and 5 girls. We ended up taking a bottle of really cheap Mr. Boston vodka from this kid's parents and all of us began drinking much faster than 15-year-olds should. I was begging to feel pretty nauseous but was determined to stay in the game of truth or dare that we had started. I was then dared to kiss the bare ass cheek of one of the more crew chicks on the girls team. As I pressed my lips to her cheek she thought it would be hilarious to grab the back of my head and rip us right in my face. The heat and smell were too much for my stomach to bear and as I pulled away I barfed all over her back and ass. During my time in the Navy I ended up at a party with a group of maybe 10 people. It was a mixed group of males and females, also Navy personnel and civilians. After a few hours of normal party hanging out the game started. It went downhill fast and ended with a co-ed naked wrestling tournament. Was playing truth or dare with a few friends. My best friend and my best friend's wife. When they married they were both virgins by choice. From a traditional household. We're having fun and it comes to my turn. I ask my best friend's wife truth or dare. She answers truth. My friend and I would always joke about our so's despising anal sex and being disgusted by it. So I asked as a joke, have you ever had anal sex? Yes, she answers. Her husband turns bright red and says no we haven't. The two leave shortly after. Turns out she was a traditional virgin but had lost her anal virginity back in high school. We didn't really talk after that. It wasn't really a dare, but a drunken friend said he'd show us how much of a man he was. In quick succession he chugged about 250 milliliters of Jack Daniels, snorted a line of salt and poured vinegar into one eye and squeezed a lemon in the other. Everybody laughed at him because he had to run to the bathroom crying to wash his eyes. Just a regular dare. My friends and I got one of our friends to drink month-old bong water. Looked like black sludge water that smelled terrible. Told him it would get him real high. More of a trick than a dare I guess. He did it and hurled instantly. People puking black liquids out is pretty ducked up to see. In college there was 8 of us playing truth or dare, 4 girls 4 guys, we were all ducking drunk. Anyway I got dared to make out with each girl. Not a big deal right? Some of the makeout sessions got a little heated. Shirts came off and there was some gentle, we are girls, touching. There were pictures. So many pictures. Frat boys are frat boys, all the pictures were on a wall in their house. Is it bad that I haven't had one of these experiences but I'm totally wishing for it to happen? One time I was dared to kiss this girl and I passed because I was in a long-going relationship with a girl I really love. 3 years. And so I did this instead. I poured really hard rum on my hand and lit it. I had to keep it lit for as long as I could. Once it got too hot to handle I had to put it out. Part of the dare though was to put it out with the watermelon next to us. So I proceeded to punch it open with my flaming fist and stick my hand in it for 3 long annoying sticky hours. My friends and I dared a kid to snort a bit of very hot sauce. He snorted it like a champ then spent the rest of the night with blood pouring from his face. A 7th grade. What were we thinking? So I almost exclusively played this game as a late teen early 20s bisexual man. There were no downsides. Almost every truth or dare memory ranges from fair to awesome. I love that game. The last time I played it, I had a foursome. I love that game. I don't care about your horror stories. I wanna play truth or dare. Warning. Sad, we were teens. High on hormones. I dared Mick to put his pet gerbils down his boxers. He did cause he had a crush on me. One of them died of fright. The pregnant female one. It still haunts me. If I could change one thing in my life, it would be that. Went to a kinky elf party once for Christmas. Good mix of a crowd until we all got it faced. Some guy got dared to be blindfolded and get blown by some random girl. Guy at the party who had always denied being gay decided it would be funny to blow him. That's how my friends Tom and Chad met and got married. Fairly tame but seasonally timely. In high school a group of friends were playing Todd drunk after a party at my house. One of my friends had a crush on a girl and was trying hard to get with her. So when it was her turn to ask him he suavely stated dare. She told him to put one of the lights adorning the nearby Christmas tree into his d-hole. He did. She was disgusted and ended up loudly hooking up with another friend in an adjacent room. Like soul-crushingly loud. While he sat on the couch nursing his burnt meatus. 'Tis the season I guess. An entire room of girls had to rub A5-35 gel on their bags. There was silence. And then screams. I know this is a little late. But in a drinking game version of Truth or Dare in university, I got my buddy to place our other friends, who was of a Middle Eastern culture that didn't allow trimming of hair, whole beard inside of his mouth for 5 or 10 seconds. I still laugh and shudder simultaneously when I think about it. After my next dare made a huge mess of the apartment, 2 scoops of Raisin Bran down Scott's pants for the remainder of the game. I wasn't allowed to play their drinking game anymore. Good times. I was at a Truth or Dare party in college. Everyone pays $5 to get in and gets the same allotment of Monopoly money. You bet people to do things and accept bets and whoever has the most at the end of the night got to keep the door. Greatest party ever. I just dared girls to make out with me all night. Until I ran out of money. So I had to accept a couple dares. Someone dared this other guy to eat a zebra cake off my ass. Dared me to drop Tro and allow him to. I figured. I'm not eating it. No big deal. It wasn't that terrible. But it did get my ass all sticky. I also felt like I couldn't really complain. Because of what the other guy had to do. Not Truth or Dare but never have I ever. We were playing any my friend's husband was there. We are all in college. And after losing every round he was very irritated. He's also in the army and has served 3 tours in Iraq. Well, we are all pretty drunk at this point so my friend can't think of anything he hasn't done and says never have I ever killed someone. This guy jumps up, screams "Goddammit, how do I keep losing?" and walks away. His wife was like, "Hey honey, it's because you have the most interesting life." TLD, a guy admits that he had killed people. A friend of mine was asked if she would ever willingly be part of a gangbang. She quickly said yes. We were all in shock. I explained what a gangbang is, then she answered, "Oh, yay." Technically this is totally the best, but my boyfriend was dead to swap underwear with me for a good half hour. I was wearing a thong. Buddy with a stun gun for dared to let his girlfriend zap him that same night. It was a good night. Well, my 4th grade teacher was a couple months pregnant. She would often leave the class for 15-20 minutes at a time to use the bathroom or something. Me and my classmates took this opportunity to play truth or dare. It started with very simple things like saying a bad word out loud. But then it evolved into us just taking off our pants and dancing for the girls every time the teacher left. We never got caught. Not truth or dare, but I lost a poker game to my husband. The bet was that I'd be available for 6 at all times for a week. By the end of the game, there were a bunch of naked people in a hot tub basically ducking each other. It had evolved from a harmless game to a full-on orgy. Someone hits us with a flashlight and one girl says, "Get that duckine light out of here, you duckine piece of it." Not the best thing to say to the cops, I'll tell you. We were on our way to Hershey Park for the 8th grade class trip. All the cool kids sat in the back of the bus. Somehow I got a seat back there too. IT began as a silly middle school game of truth or dare until this girl was dared to give some dude head for 2 minutes. And then, a few turns later, she was dared to do it again. To a different boy. I was an innocent cream puff Casper milquetoast. Having never seen anything like this outside of porn, I was in shock. Not super risque, but it gave her the funniest nickname for the next 4 years in high school. Doubleheader. Oh god. I had a friend who basically aspired to join the cast of Jackass. He would do literally any dare. Our friends were actually pretty irresponsible with his total lack of self-preservation. It got way out of hand sometimes. He was like a volunteer human guinea pig for every crazy idea. He was ducking fearless. We called him Super Pat. Some examples, in ascending order of creativity and stupidity. He let me film him getting kicked in the balls by someone who had a running start. Also, he was the first in line to be tased. First on the arm, then again on his ballsack. He took a paintball pellet to his bare ass at point blank range. He took shots of hot sauce. He duct taped a gigantic firework canister to his ass and set it off. He jumped off a 2nd-story balcony onto a hammock over concrete, breaking his femur, thus earning the nickname Bionic Super Pat. He told us to tie him to a chair and not let him go until he finished an 18-pack of beer by himself. Getting to 13 before we made him stop out of fear he'd rupture his bladder. You could literally see how distended it was through his clothes. He ate his roommate's goldfish, immortally uttering the phrase, "Frank is inside me," which led to the worst, or best, depending on your perspective, idea, when he decided to prank the employee of our local pet store. I wasn't there for this one, but apparently he purchased a couple dozen small feeder fish, took them outside and proceeded to swallow them all whole with a vodka chaser, then went back into the store and said, "Mom, there's something wrong with your feeder fish," and spectacularly puked them up all over the counter. Pat was insane. I once witnessed a grown white man with a full beard swap clothes with a 16-year-old Chinese girl. We all lost a bit of pride that day. Truth. Got asked to read out my sexual bucket list, and then tell everyone which ones I'd completed. Then for the rest of the night, dares centered around helping me cross more of them off. It was pretty neat. I was at my friend's 29th birthday party when we started a game of truth or dare. We may be too old for this, it being my friend's birthday and knowing how timid she is. I dared her to wash me in the shower. Upon hearing my dare, she instantly stared, frightened at my fiance who was also playing. And without missing a beat, my fiance said he hasn't showered in 2 days. He could definitely use a good scrubbing. Make sure to get under the arms and don't forget the taint. Needless to say, the entire party crammed into the tiny bathroom and everyone was entertained. I got dared to lick my friend's cat. He was a nasty bastard. I snuck up on him and licked the top of his head and got some claws to my face. I was 23, not that drunk. Not really truth or dare, more like their distant cousin, would you rather. Anyway, Dave Franco and Christopher Mintz McLovin came to our school to promote their web series thing and teach a class at my college. Halfway through the presentation they had a would you rather skit they made play and asked if the audience had any questions. Now I was this brand new, lowly freshman who miraculously got tickets to this big event thing by sitting in line for hours. I was by myself in a sea of seniors. I slowly raise my hand and they call on me. Reddit taught me well in the would you rather arts, so I decided to try one out on them. My heart was literally pumping out of my chest as I proceed to ask Dave Franco and McLovin, Would you rather watch your parents have a sex for half an hour every day, join in once to make it stop? The entire audience erupted in laughter as these guys just kept asking specifics like if they both have to climax or something. By that point things just got weird, so I think they said just no to the question and moved on. Really awkward experience. But hey, it counts as an interaction with celebrities. It was the last dare of the night and someone dared my drunk buddy to stick his D in the subwoofer for his home theater system while they played a song with a tunnel bass for a minute straight. He ended up refusing to pull it out after the minute was up, so we all said duck it and left him to do his thing. Showed up the next morning to find him passed out with his pants still at his ankles hunched over the subwoofer. I still damn near piss myself from laughing every time I think about it. Edit. For those wondering, it was into the air hole vent of the sub. I'm so sad I'm late to the party here and this is gonna end up 6 feet under. But anyway, a guy's sleepover when we were maybe in junior high. Lame as hell. But we decide to play. There's not much you can do without any girls there. So our dares had to get a little creative. One guy gets dared to stick his D in the vacuum cleaner. No way he's doing it in front of us. So we let him go into a nearby room. We hear vroom, followed by oh man. That feels so weird. We all find it hilarious. So that becomes the go-to dare for everyone else. Several more guys venture into the other room. Same thing happens. Vroom, followed by various exclamations of wonder and surprise. Then it's Doug's turn. He gets up, walks into the other room. A brief pause, and vroom. Doug. How do you turn IT off? The host had to run into the other room to shut down the vacuum and rescue poor Doug's wiener from the mouth of the snarling beast while he continues screaming in mortal terror. Turns out he was the only one who actually did it, or at least no one else would admit after that they did it for real. In the end, we only had evidence on poor Doug. And no, he never managed to live it down and eventually left the school. At one party the host kept daring people to go and get the Wi-Fi password off their next door neighbor. At another a guy was dared to smoke a pube spliff. Fairly standard I hear. And another friend requested twos on it. This wasn't really truth or dare, I guess. Just truth. There was 5 of us. And for the past year at school, we'd hung out a lot. It kind of became a thing for us 5 to go down to a place in town and smoke a few joints. One time, whilst skinning up, one of us asked, what's one thing you've never told anyone? It went round the circle. But I can honestly not remember what any of us said apart from our friend Dave, not real name, who hit us with, I once had sex with my sister, after having sat there in stunned silence for a while. To this day, best friend Andy said you will never speak of this again, and in silence, we walked back to school wondering what the duck else our incestuous friend hadn't told us. For what it's worth, his sister was ducking hot.